Aloha. Thank you for joining us at the Leadership Circle. Today we have Deana, and Matt will be jumping on. He's been catching a flight all across the world, and so he'll jump on in about 15 minutes. And as usual, we were discussing what should we talk to you guys about. And since Matt's traveling and I'm currently on the Big Island, I'm in Volcano, we figured let's talk about travel and what we've learned from our experiences in travel and see where the conversation will take us. And so, Deana, travel, hello.
Hello. Thank you, JR, for the intro. Yes, we are missing our partner in crime, however, or not crime, partner in greatness and partner in leadership, and he will be with us shortly. So travel is a teacher. What has it taught us? What has it taught you? How's your life been enriched as a result of it? So I know, JR, you were sharing a bunch of stories that you're there with the family, and we just thought we'd kind of just throw it out there, share some stories and kind of see how we have grown, I guess, as a result of travel.
Well, I think most people agree with the fact that travel will broaden our horizons. And it's really easy to think a certain way until you've gone other places and you get to see different perspectives. One of the things I think about a lot is because my kids do have it really good where my kids get to travel and see the world. I'm like, we need to get you in a third world country really, really quickly so you can get a sense of perspective, because it's one thing for me to tell them that there's people that are hungry, and it's another thing for them to actually see a hungry kid, you know, and just the perspectives and the knowledge and, you know, how it grows and expands my consciousness just from traveling. And so, you know, I think from the different cultures, the different people, and then even if we're just going to talk stories, I took a train across America and just talked to people like on the train for 2 days straight, you know, and you can learn all about different things and places. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot to be learned from travel, you know, regardless of how and where you do it.
Very true, regardless of how and and where. And here right now, some of us experiencing more limitations than others in our travel experiences, and others clearly not. However, it looks like things are opening up again. And I just always think of travel as an opportunity to be humble, right? I feel like it can be a teacher where it humbles us in the sense, and I'll kind of share maybe throughout our time today a few stories, but there were times where walking into a new culture, it's sort of like, okay, there's just a standard or a norm of how what I'm familiar with, how I operate, how we do things here in America, in the States, and then going elsewhere and realizing like, oh, there's no way on earth this is going to work according to the culture that I'm in, and I'm not going to get my not going to be able to get my whatever it is I'm needing isn't going to happen, just because it's a different way of doing things. And so kind of realizing like, the quicker I can adapt, the quicker I'll be able to acclimate and kind of, you know, move along.
There's so much I take for granted. I went to a wedding in Nicaragua, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, maybe longer. You know, they didn't have hot water. You know, it's just like, I didn't even think that was like a complete, you know, we don't have, it's just all cold water. And they only had electricity, you know, for like 2 hours a day, or they're having like roaming blackouts. So they had electricity for 2 hours a day, no hot water. And that's just normal everyday life. And, you know, I grew up in Kailua, Oahu, Hawaii, a little different. And so I think my travel, you know, I've been to Thailand, I've been to some other places, Malaysia, Singapore, and, you know, the States, it really has broadened my horizon, you know, especially because in Hawaii, it's America, but it's very different than America. And so we get exposed to a lot of the international Asian travelers. So maybe we're not getting exposed to the Irish, the Polish, the English, and that kind of cultures, or even the Arabic and that kind of areas. We're getting China, Japan, and, you know, those kind of, you know, Vietnam, Laos, those kind of areas. And so those have really influenced Hawaii and me. And so sometimes America is more different than some of those places. You know, I went to Mississippi. It was way more different than where I'm from than Thailand was. Mississippi. way much more like another planet.
Then and going to, that's so
I
interesting.
went
And
back to back. I went from a wedding in Mississippi to Thailand. So it was just like, it was, yeah. But
that is interesting. One of the things I've noticed that I take for granted a lot here is customer service. um, being in the United States, it's like the customer is always right, and that's really, that's an element of customer service. Going to, to other places, realizing that it's like, oh, I didn't like my food, for example, at a restaurant, or it's kind of just like, oh, I mean, you shouldn't have ordered it. And it's like, well, how was I going to know? Like, okay, it's just going to sit there. But very, very different responses than over here. It's kind of just like, okay, no, like, even if it's just, we'll take care of it. Well, how is it that you like it? Would you want to get something else? Whatever that is. But in other places, it's just like, or being with people and telling them, well, if you don't like it, just let them know you don't like it. And it's like, no, we don't do that here. Like you ordered it, you're kind of just stuck with it. Like, that's it. You want something else, you just order something else, but you don't ever, like, you don't say you don't like the food. I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Not right, not wrong, just different. And so realizing that in my younger years, I'd go to Egypt a lot, and trying to implement what we know as customer service, or the customer's right, or there's a system to things, looks a little bit different over there. And I remember one time when I was younger, we were standing at like some fast food place, and there were no lines. It was just kind of stood there, and I thought I was in a line, but clearly I wasn't. And arms were just kind of like, everyone was just kind of throwing money, like they're just extending their arm to like the other side of the counter. And I'm standing there like, this is not okay. Like, there's no system here. Like, what are you guys doing? And I remember this one gentleman kept going to the side from like where they had the fountain drink. So the fountain drink was behind the counter on the side. And this one person would go over and he would talk to the other person from next to the fountain drink, like right by the wall. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like he's totally cutting. And then he was like behind me, and I told him, I said, excuse me, you're not in line. And he looks at me and he was like, what line? I said, the one you're not standing in. And of course I was younger, and I was attempting to say this in Arabic, and I'm sure that everybody was like laughing at me. But with my broken Arabic at the time, and I was like, the one you're not standing in. And he's just like, that's not gonna work. But I'll tell you what, I won't order my food until you're done ordering. How's that? And that was his way to humor me. And I mean, looking back, I'm like, wow, that was actually really like nice and considerate of him. But he was basically telling me like, we'll make an exception for you right now, but yeah, that's not going to work. That's not how we roll here. And I was like, this is the place of like, he or she who has the longest arm wins. Like, if you can actually extend your arm, if it's longer and you can reach the person behind the cashier, that's the order that's going to be taken. But it was just kind of like, okay, and then where do I come off trying to, sit here and I'm trying to like implement order around the world? Like, how arrogant is that on my part? Who's to say that, okay, that's how it works where I'm from. However, when I'm there, it's like, how do I be respectful and mindful of that culture and see how I can, fit in, or at least appreciate where they're at.
Yeah. I mean, even around the world, there's different barriers of space, as far as like how close you get to someone. That's one of the things in Asia, that barrier is closer. And so like we'll be on the beach and all of a sudden someone will come up next to you and you're like, wait a second.
Where's my 6 feet all around of like
in their mind, they're probably conserving space. I don't know. Like we just start here and it can expand out. I don't, who am I to judge what they're thinking? But so there's just cultures. And so I think by being exposed to different cultures, it really broadens our horizon into being right. I know I think I'm right until I go somewhere else, until I'm finding I'm completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, like, I don't know, what's appropriate here isn't appropriate there, and having to learn that before we get there, and then learning from trial and error, getting in trouble for doing it the wrong way. And then, okay, now I'm definitely not going to do that again. And yeah, so.
I think it's a very humbling experience. if we choose and we're open to see it that way, in the sense of, even when we talk about other cultures, if we're in other countries, there's other norms, but even within our systems here, there's elements of subcultures and smaller groups, and just, and even just people. So I think it really allows us to practice the art of asking and being curious, rather than trying to teach the world something about, how they should be. It's just being curious and understanding.
And with that, if you're curious, you can ask the people where the good food is at. And so all these different subcultures will have different types of spices or different types of the way they provide the food. In Hawaii, we think of just Mexican food, and then I went to college in Colorado, and there's different types of areas of they cook it this way, and then they cook it this way. And I, coming from Hawaii, I just thought it means, it comes with beans, so, and so it's the only place that we're not eating white rice. And so like the different types of food and getting into these little subcultures and where are the people that work here eating and stuff like that. That's one of my favorite things about traveling is the different food and learning about how they prepare it. And I like, I don't eat meat. So the different ways they grow the foods, and in Nicaragua, it was plantains. Everything was plantains, kind of like in Hawaii, everything is, kalo, taro, poi. In Nicaragua, it was the plantains. And so just learning about how they grow it, and even back in the day, 100, 200, 300 years ago, how they grew it. That's what I really like learning about. I'm on the Big Island right now. I've been learning about how, because it's such a volcanic, young island, that they had to grow in shallow, like kind of almost like holes in the lava. And so even if there was dirt, it wasn't really deep. It was on lava rock. And so what did they grow? They grew a lot of sweet potatoes and stuff because it's very shallow roots. And so just learning about the different ways, and there's a lot of ferns. And so they have all these ferns have like the fuzzy stuff on it. And so, they would sell that all around the world back in the day. And now they make it out of plastic, I'm sure. But just, it's fun to learn about the different places and the different cultures. And I like the indigenous kind of stuff. So I like to learn about what they did before it was colonialized, if that's possible at all. So yeah.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit more about the island you're on, JR, so we can all.
So I'm in the Big Island right now, and I'm up in Volcano, which is they call it a village. It's a small little tiny town. There's nothing really here. Some houses, and then there's the volcano. So there's been it's been kind of active. So Kilauea crater has filled up with lava recently and started moving again. So there's some life. It's been raining a lot, so there's steam vents everywhere. So a lot of the park has vents, and so it's really, really cool. And right now I'm in a rainforest, so there's just a lot of different cool birds, and it's very peaceful and quiet.
You can hear some of them.
Can you? Cool. Yeah, and when it stops raining in the morning, when it first gets light, it sounds like one of those like things you would buy, sound makers. I mean, they're probably coming here to record.
The white noise.
Well, not the white noise, the birds singing. Like if you had like the meditation birds singing in the back, there's like 500,000 birds singing all around, so right now it's raining.
The whole melody.
But yeah, and so, I've been blessed to take my family. So my kids have gotten to travel and see the world. I really enjoy traveling. I enjoy meeting new people. Even if I'm working from the house, I'm doing it somewhere else. So, but as far as leadership, and if I'm going to tie that into travel, it's your representative of wherever you come from as well. And you are being judged. And so when we go places, a lot of times we wear the Hawaii shirt. So it's America, but it's Hawaii. It's not like them. Everyone likes the Hawaiian, but it's like you're judged wherever you go, or you can be in the travel. And so, what kind of impact are you having where you go? Right? Are we leaving a good example? So maybe they'll have fun thoughts about wherever you come from, or are we being arrogant like many Americans can be and just tell them they're wrong? And so. That's one of the things that I think is important to think about. How are we showing up in these places? It's very quiet here where I'm at. So it's keeping the kids quiet and just, it's a very quiet place. So if we came in and we're just like, ah! Which we do anyways with the kids and stuff, but it's what's appropriate, who are we offending, stuff like that. Knowing where you are.
I think that brings up a really good point with regards to, you know, we have a lot to learn from them. And it's not that they're learning from us, but at least keeping that channel or that line of communication open, of realizing what impact are we having, and creating that space where they can also ask. And just, you know, because they can learn just as much from visitors as visitors can learn from, like, just like we learn from, you know, quote unquote tourists too. We get a little piece of their culture. And, you know, it's interesting because how things are, you know, yes, globalization, yes, people have access to, you know, movies and media from all around the world. And yet it's still different when you're able to kind of see a person, a real person, and you get to dispel all the stereotypes that you thought, because, you know, they think, oh, you're from Orange County, oh, you're like from the OC, right? And it's just like, oh, what you saw on TV is like really not what all of us are. But it's just those conversations that get to come up.
So what have you learned from your travels, Deana?
What have I learned? I've learned I'm thinking how much more in common we have with people around the world, right? Like I'm remembering kind of just going to a couple of the islands in the Caribbean and just really getting a chance to connect. Sometimes I think as tourists, from I try as much as I can, even if I'm going to be part of the little touristy piece, to still make sure there's a time to really connect with like locals, far away from the tourist scene, because there's that whole programming of how things need to be. And it's like, I really want an experience of people as they are, not the show they have to put on for the people coming to visit. So that just kind of sometimes breaks my heart, though I realize the economics behind it and the dynamics behind it. But it's like, okay, how can we also leave an impact further in, like deep in the towns, not just like on the ports, for example. But I think from travel, the more I travel, the more I realize I don't know. Like there's so much more I have, like I said, it's that big humility teacher of just how much I don't know, how much more there is, and how many different ways are, like, how much awesomeness exists. I mean, people are amazing and they adapt and they connect. And at the end of the day, it's like we all want the same thing, which is everybody wants to be happy or to have a better life for their, you know, for their families. That being able to just see the humanity in people. I think that's what I've seen in travel.
Yeah, and most people are nice. You know, I mean, I've met a few jerks in my life, but not very many. Like, you know, most of the people wherever I travel are very friendly, and I think it's cool to meet all the different types of people. Like I go to Chicago, you know, coming from Hawaii, that's where my family was. You go to Chicago, everyone's big, they eat lots of beer, eat lots of sausage and beer, and they're rowdy and they're fun. There's not a lot of hikes and stuff in Chicago, so they're all used to going to sporting, hockey games, baseball games, football games, you know, a lot of meat and good music and that kind of culture. And then, you know, the different places. I went down to Mississippi where there's all the blues. And so it was, where I went, it was kind of like a poor town too. So it was, in my opinion, there's a lot of racism, but they wouldn't say that. But in my mind, it was real heavy. But and so it's just very different. But we're like, there was a blues bar and that kind of music, and then just kind of exposing myself. And there's Mr. Matt. And so, but the music is one of the great things about traveling and being exposed to different things. Well, hello there, friend. Welcome on.
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you too. Welcome back.
It's good to be here. It's good to be here. I apologize I'm behind. It's great to see you, JR. Enjoying your time?
Yes. Yes.
Beautiful. Good to see you, Deana. Good to see you both. So I'm just diving in. Go ahead wherever you were, and I'll jump in and have some fun with you guys.
Awesome.
You were talking about music?
Well, we were talking about travel and the different things to experience, and music being one of them. You know, you coming from, what, you went to Costa Rica?
Costa Rica. Yeah.
Some pretty cool music while you're down there, I would imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some wonderful music played. Yeah.
And so, yeah, just the different gifts that there are, whether it's food or music, and the different diversities and like, they're not the right words, but subcategories. And these type of people will do it this way, and this kind of people no, they're doing it a little bit this way. And then as you get to know a culture, there's all these little deeper layers and stuff and things to be learned, you know. And that's one of the fun things about traveling, in my mind, is learning lower layers. And you know, one of the examples I said earlier is, growing up in Hawaii, I thought Mexican food basically came with beans, you know. And then I went to college in Colorado, which has phenomenal Mexican food, and I'm assuming Arizona has phenomenal Mexican food as well.
Yeah.
And California. But for me, coming from Hawaii, they didn't have good Mexican food, at least not the places I was going to. And so learning, oh no, they do it this way over here, and oh no, this is this, and then down there they're calling it sloppers, and the green chilies are good over here, and it's just really cool to learn the different sub layers. You know, like up here on the Big Island, it's rainier and stuff, so like it's just different than if you go to Kona. That's where all the fish are, the tourists and stuff like that. And so that's where you're going to get a lot of fresh fish and fancy hotels. Here, there's nothing but rain and ferns and birds, you know. And how you think it's Hawaii, but there's so many different layers to the Hawaii, or even to OC in Arizona. That's what's kind of fun.
Yeah, I think traveling can teach us a lot. And I think traveling anywhere can teach us a lot. And when we're traveling to different countries and experiencing their culture and their, in Costa Rica, we call it pura vida, you know, their way of life. And there's just amazing experiences that we get to have when we travel. And I know for me personally, coming back, I literally just walked in the door, but coming back, there's a part of the pura vida spirit that's within me, just from being there for, you know, a few days that I was spending there. It's good to be back, man. It's good to be back. What an amazing experience.
That's awesome.
The people are great. The food is authentico. It's very good. We ate very, very clean food, you know, rice, beans, potatoes, vegetables, but just overall amazing, man. Amazing trip. I love traveling. I love it when I come home from travel. There's a piece of that culture that's with me, and getting to see things from a different perspective, and definitely some takeaways that I'm gonna apply, you know, that I'm home now, and I'll get to share those with you guys too. So
we realize there's a whole integration piece of like all the learning. So we can get to that. You don't have to like dive in right now. Just honoring the space you're at, and just grateful that you're here.
Yes, and I'm grateful I'm here too. I'm grateful for the friendship that we share, and I'm grateful for the leadership circle. For anybody who's watching, if you are watching replay or live, I'm grateful for you. You know what I wanted to share, if you guys don't mind, I thought about this on my drive home. There's going to be great conversations that come, because there was a lot of powerful insights, but just the layers of growth, I think, is one thing that I thought would be a beautiful segment to just talk about. And, you know, growth it's a forever journey, personal growth or spiritual growth, or it's a forever journey. And the deeper you go, the more you'll grow. And this past few days, I was able to go to many places I've never been before and experience a lot of personal and spiritual growth. And don't know how quite to put that into words right now, because I want to make sure that it is communicated in a way that you guys, the audience, and you as well can understand, and then I can share. But the deeper you go, the more you grow. And I am so grateful for this experience that I had these past few days. Traveling, you know, the topic being traveling. There was wonderful music, JR. It's wonderful people that I met, and that's another beautiful thing is all the new friendships that you meet when you're traveling, and the people that I met from around the world this past week, from Europe to UK to all over the place, Costa Rica. So many new friends, so many great people. And that's one of my favorite things about traveling too. It's the expansion of the circle.
Mm-hmm.
There's people all over this world that are beautiful and that have a positive message and have gifts. And it feels really good coming home knowing that this energy and this vibration is worldwide, and the circle got bigger, you guys. The circle got a lot bigger for sure.
That's beautiful that you say that, because like you said earlier, everywhere we go, we get to take a little piece of that home with us, and this traveling, it's the ever expanding circle, right? We're just bringing little parts into us. We're not losing anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the stuff we don't need, but it's just gaining and gaining, and that's why I think travel is so important, yeah.
Well, and we also, we're not leaving with a lack, but we also get to leave parts, or share, I should say, parts of us wherever we go to. So their experience is also, like, their circle is expanding as well. I always try to be aware of that, because it's always like, okay, what am I getting from there? But it's also, what am I giving? And how is that impacting everyone who's there?
Yeah, one person can change the entire equation, right? Like, for example, being in a retreat or whatever it's called. But that's a great point, Deana. Like, not just about what's being received, but what I was able to give and what I was able to contribute. And everybody's experience there was absolutely different as a result of me being in that circle. And that's great to honor myself for that, because I was able to provide gifts to others as they were for me. And it was a reciprocated interaction between beautiful people and the spirit of friendship. And yeah, man, wow.
So excited to hear about it later as it comes up over the next few weeks. I'm sure pieces of it are gonna be infused in these conversations.
Well, certainly. And we talk about travel and how important that is. There was a part, JR, you were making too, I always think that, traveling is the best education anybody can have. I personally, I think university and school is a great way to learn. It's definitely one way. And as a father, I've often talked to my daughter and said, whatever you decide to do, be you. But I strongly encourage that you do travel prior to settling life and settling down, because there's the best knowledge and the best education, I feel, is being out there in the world and experiencing all the places and people and seeing that we're not just in this little box here that you grew up in. The world is beautiful. It's huge. And there's so much to see and experience and learn. And so I encourage my daughter, one of the things, if she were here, I could ask her, like, there's three things. You're either gonna, after high school, you're gonna want to go to college. I support that. If that's what you want to do. Maybe you want to start your own business. I support that if that's what you want to do. Or maybe you want to go travel the world, and I support that if that's what you want to do. But prior to settling, and my opinion is getting married, having kids, and doing all that, I strongly encourage her and or anybody to go out there and experience the world before then, because we get married, we have kids, and then it can turn into like, okay, well, now I'm not traveling because I got to stay home and I got to take care of the family, or I got to be here with my wife, or I got to be here with the kids. And I think that we make up a story that we can't do that after, or maybe it's a little different doing that after having kids and getting married. If that's your choice, I honor that. If that's the path for you, it's a beautiful direction to go. Go ahead, please.
Sometimes with a bunch of kids, it can be harder. It's a lot of butts on an airplane you got to pay for.
Yeah.
And so it's even more important to get it before you're loaded. I tell my kids, marriage and kids are forever. So go out and have fun before you lock yourself into forever.
True. And I think another good point too is to, find a partnership that will honor if you are in a committed relationship or partnership where, one other can honor that the other spouse or partner wants to or has an opportunity to go travel. It's like, go. Just because I'm a dad doesn't mean that I'm not able. It takes a village to raise a child. And just because I'm a dad doesn't mean that I'm not able to travel. But having a great partnership, I think that can honor that. Like if your spouse or partner has an opportunity to go on a trip with her friends or his friends, it's like honor that I come home, I'm so much bigger and better and so much more full and so much like I have so much more now because of my experience that I can be and give, that it's like, why would you not support that? And so I think it's important, even if you are married and have kids, to also create that space for one another in a partnership.
Yeah. And even mentioning that, like, I know we're talking about like travel, it sounds like we're talking about travel to distances, right? To distant places, but there's even opportunities for, quote unquote, travel locally, or even to have like that travel mindset. So sometimes going from like one city to another can be very different and eye-opening. And there's those opportunities for, like, I look at it as like a travel mindset. Where it's, coming from curiosity and realizing that, as a result of this encounter or this experience, my life is enriched and hopefully their life is enriched as well. Our vision, our view of the world has sort of expanded, at least, the box has gotten bigger, the circle has gotten bigger. And there's those opportunities to, definitely, yes, travel the world. And sometimes the world is right in our backyard.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not forget that piece.
Some of the best trips was camping not too far, away. And so whether it's the time away from work to focus on your family or whoever you're traveling with, or if it's learning from the new people you meet. I live on the windward side of Oahu, which is the east side. The west side is very different. It would be like, another country in some parts. I can go learn. Am I going to go there with eyes like I know, or am I going to go there with curiosity, like you said, like I don't know, and what lenses are we bringing?
And you just reminded me too that sometimes people are traveling to us.
Right.
And those are more opportunities for us to get a little bit of where they're coming from and kind of, take in that experience as well. So, even at the restaurant, I kind of love doing this when people, sometimes it's easier to spot people who maybe don't look like the locals. And so making it a point to sort of, open up conversation and opportunities to learn more about them, their experience, what it is that they're hoping or they're looking. If they're on vacation, it's like, how's the experience been? Like, what are you looking forward most to? And if I'm able to provide any insight for them, being a local in the area that they're coming to, but also engaging in that little moment of interaction with them usually fills my heart as well. So, and I feel like I've gained something too.
Yeah. Thinking there's so much to see, and it can be right in your backyard. It can be right in your own community. Going out there and experiencing, the more we experience, the more we learn, the more we grow. Greeting people as they come into Arizona. Many times I've been at wherever a location and it's like, oh yeah, they're from out of town. And I strike a conversation with a complete stranger and they're, where do I go? What do I see? What are some things to do? And it's, greet them and share with them some things, that they might enjoy, or restaurants or whatever. Oh, wow. Well, it sure does feel good to be back. Wow.
Great to have you back.
So traveling can teach us a lot, that's for sure. And there's so much to see out there.
I was going to Singapore for a couple of years with Marshall Thurber, and we've all done a lot of personal growth classes, and they're very different in Asia, I learned, and so like in America, people are more willing to raise their hands and ask questions, more so even on the States than in Hawaii. And I think in America, we're more open to crying and vulnerability, even though that's not necessarily that normal even to Americans. But when we were in Asia, like no one would ask questions, and we would do these interactive classes and no one would ask a question. And I was just, oh shit, we got to call on people. And it was, and in some of these classes, there were some pretty hardcore, you had to go deep to get through the exercises. And a lot of times there was crying. And so I found that I would really get vulnerable in order to give them permission to get there. Whereas in Hawaii, it didn't need to do that kind of stuff. People were more willing to kind of be open and vulnerable where no one was going there. In order for anyone to even think about going vulnerable, I had to like bare my soul, really like prove that I'm safe, or this is a safe place. And so that was something to learn about too. Like if you were to teach something, how you'd have to teach it differently, possibly in each area you go to around the world.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I like hugging everyone and crying and stuff. So when I went to everything, not everyone, I mean, not that they don't like hugging and stuff, but it was different than Hawaii when I was in Singapore. And I love all my Singapore friends.
On my list of places to go soon, hopefully. I was supposed to be there and then the pandemic happened. So hopefully after.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, JR. Everybody, it's culture and it's different, after traveling the world and being around and having the privilege to see so many different places. There's some places that I've been to, their way of living, you have to honor that, like coming in there from the United States as an American, you're going to their land or going to their culture. I've also felt like it's very important to honor their way, right? I mean, here I'm, from the United States, and I visited a location or been to places where it's like, there might be stigmas or certain beliefs about cultures or ethnicity or whatever. I just honor that I'm there, I'm in their space, and I'm in their land, and I want to treat it just like they do, and I want to follow their lead, right? But teaching, as you were saying, or being in a class, I'm sure you gotta approach it differently. It's just different ways of listening or asking questions or whatever that might look like. Traveling can teach you a lot, that's for sure. I highly encourage. Do you have anything on your list of places that you want to go? You said Singapore. Deana, is this going to happen? Is this a continuation, a trip that will take place, or is?
No, it'll be under different circumstances. However, okay. The intention is for it'll maybe even be better. Mm-hmm. Singapore's on my list. New Zealand is definitely on my list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, New Zealand's been on my list.
When they allow outsiders in.
Yeah, I think there's there's different right now. It's different for a lot of people. I spent some time with a lot of people from all over the world, and like they have to go through like PCR tests and all these things when they're traveling. And it's, we had to get negative COVID tests in order to fly back home, which we cleared with flying colors. Everything's good. However, there were some people that were preparing that were like, they have to, have this whole process just to get in, and the quarantine, and like it's a lot. And so respect to all those that are out there that still have the courage to go out there and travel and go through all that.
Yeah, I mean, I got a buddy in Colombia who hasn't left his condo in a year. I mean, he gets to go shopping for an hour on every other Thursday or something. Here, I'm in Hawaii. We wear our masks and stuff, but Hawaii wasn't affected like Orange County. You know what I mean? It definitely. I'm not having the same experience. We had to do our COVID tests and stuff to get here, and I have to do that. But I definitely didn't have the same experience as my buddy in Colombia, and probably some of those people you met, and even what you've had, Deana and Matt. And everything we do is outside anyways, and I just stopped hanging out with other people, which was okay for me. And so I didn't.
We substituted people for nature and animals.
Yeah, and my family.
And birds.
And so it was all. I did not have the same experience that a lot of people had. I'm very blessed that I had COVID was good for my soul. You know what I mean? It healed a lot of wounds that I had. I got put in timeout and I had to sit and think about what I did. And I did. And so, you know, just how we get the gifts and the not gifts that go with each area too, right? Beautiful places might have some crime, or it might be really, really wonderful and loving, but they're poor and hungry. And you know what I mean? Everyone's got the yin and the yang, you know, the good with the bad. And,
one of the things you were mentioning earlier, JR, even just about the different terrain and the different, you know, difference in places, even in terms of like the, I guess the terrain, but it's just that appreciation for diversity, an appreciation that each environment has its own formulation of like who's there, and like even culturally, like what jives over there, and like what even survives, and what crops are grown, and what wildlife exists, and what you know, and just really that appreciation is what comes to mind. It's like, wow, you know, if every place was the same, like how boring may it be, or how insufficient would all of, like, we wouldn't be able to have enough variety. And so there's that beauty in being able to see people as representations of that as well.
And that'll be the challenge as the world converges, right? As the internet connects us all, and the airplanes and the boats and the trains and everything connects the world, you know, 500 years from now, when we operate more as a planet, you know, I assume it, I mean, that's the direction we're going. How we keep the diversity and what kind of new diversity springs up, and new cultures, you know, almost in reaction to assimilation.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm not going to do that if everyone else is doing it. I'm going full this way, and I'll create a whole new culture, because, you know, that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So, be interesting.
Sorry, guys, I just had a call. I had to, yeah, you know, there was moments where I was traveling, when we were traveling, I was looking out and I was seeing the cows feeding off of the grass in a natural habitat. And I don't want to go too far down this hole, but, you know, it just, that's the way it should be. That's, you know, I don't see that in Arizona as often, you know. I mean, of course, there's plantations and things, and there's cows out there that are naturally eating, don't get me wrong. But the way of life in different countries is beautiful. We have a lot to learn from each other. And if we keep doing things our way or this way, I think it creates more separation, and there's an opportunity for us to learn from them, and them to learn from us, and for us to learn from each other. So I'm so excited to be back, guys, and look forward to our next chat, because I know there's a lot that gets to be shared. And so thank you for having me. I apologize that I slid in late, but my commitment's my commitment. And the first thing I wanted to do was pet my dogs and tell them I'm home. And I did that, and I jumped right in over here. So again, really appreciate you guys. It's so good to be home. It's good to be back on here.
Thank you, Matt. We appreciate your commitment. We appreciate everybody watching, tuning in now or later. And sort of, you know, for the week, maybe invitation to adopt a traveler mindset in some capacity, even if it's just, you know, in the neighborhood, or go to a different store you haven't gone to before, just something different. Look at things from a different lens and have that curiosity. If you do get a chance to travel, do it.
Deana, that brings up a good point. I'm going to jump on what you were saying. You know, a lot of times I've encouraged others, because this was a gift somebody gave to me. You know, if you're looking to create different results, do things differently. So if you usually travel to work one way from point A to point B, and you take this highway and you get up that road, and you go the same way every day, break up the routine, do something new, do something different. And so when I heard you share that, immediately that came up for me. And that's a good encouragement for others too. If we're looking to do things different, or if we want things to be different, do things differently. Take a different path to work, go a different route, be spontaneous. If we keep doing the same thing over and over, we're going to keep getting the same results over and over. So encourage the travel, most certainly.
On that note, though, what we do want them to continue doing more of, which is the same of, is to be I didn't
Wow.
tee this up very well. Is to be love, be light, be aloha.
Yeah. Yeah. Be love, be light, be aloha. Share it
However
wherever
way
you
it
go.
shows up, just continue to be that.
Yeah, most certainly. Well, I guess this is where we sign off, but next Tuesday, buckle up because we're going to have some good stuff at the Leadership Circle. I know that we got some great things coming. I love the both of you, and thank you again for having me and for keeping this going and for being on time. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Indeed.
See you guys next week.
All right, next week we'll see you Tuesday. Be love, be light, be aloha. We'll see you soon.